Good evening, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and I am joined by my good buddy, Slotted Up 503, Jason.
How's it going, everybody?
Jimmy couldn't make it tonight, so we have an honorary usual suspect. We have
How's it going, everyone?
What's
going on? What's going on? Hello.
And then we have our special guest of honor, Ted Sikora.
Howdy.
Welcome.
Owner of Hero Tomorrow Comics and creator and writer Bloom and Apama and the vaudeville one.
Punchline in the Vaudevillains and
Yes.
Captain is Killer.
The very first punchline, right, Ted?
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
By at least 2 years of the DC one.
Mm-hmm.
The DC one's not that great, and that's coming from someone who loves DC. That punchline's kind of meh.
I won't argue.
So to get us going, Ted, why don't you give us just a brief history for our audience of Hero Tomorrow Comics, how you guys started out. I know you're based on a movie that you guys, an indie film you guys made. Just give us a little overview real quick.
Sure. It all started with this feature film here, and it's a dark comedy about a guy who has an idea for a superhero. And I wrote this with my friend Milo Miller. I directed it, and it's got a cast of hundreds. We spent about 3 years writing it. I spent an entire year storyboarding. I did 1,500 images, which really was where I learned how to do, I think, sequential storytelling. But we both were longtime comic book fanatics and, read our whole lives, mostly a Marvel guy, and especially loved the Bronze Age. But the premise, this guy has an idea for a superhero. He can't get it published, but his idea is based on the premise that so many heroes are creature themed. All the good ones have been taken, like spiders, bats, ants, wolverines, whatever. So he makes up an animal that's so powerful and stealth it was never yet discovered by mankind. He calls this the Apama. And his superhero is going to be that badass like the Apama. Well, this makes no sense to publishers, but his girlfriend makes him a costume. She's an aspiring fashion designer. Makes him a costume of his character for Halloween. Then he starts running around in it trying to fight actual crime, but with no superpowers. So the film debuted at Comic-Con International, played film festivals all over the world. And one of the things we kept hearing is there's really nothing like this in comics, and you ought to think about adapting it. And we didn't want to make a movie adaptation of Hero Tomorrow because we felt like its own little story and universe. But what if we did the book that was in his head and we can just start fresh? And that became Apama, the Undiscovered Animal. So we did our first issue, put it up online digitally to try to sell copies of the film. And we got a lot of great reviews. We weren't really selling copies of the movie, but we found out how much we loved making comics. And hired Benito Gallego to do the art on this. He's got this classic, Bronze Age looking style, very John Buscema kind of influence on Apama. And we were thrilled because, my God, we can make comics that look like the books we grew up, loving.
Yeah.
But we try to do it with a modern spin. And we just kept going with that. Issue 5 of Apama, we introduced the Regina character.
And I thought there was a little Joe Kubert in there too.
Oh, I think he's very influenced by Joe Kubert as well. Yeah, but for sure, like he wears it on his sleeves. Like John Buscema is the greatest artist of all time. Like he's really.
I wouldn't argue that.
I was going to say Gary will agree.
Yeah.
No. I mean that's Benito talking. If it were me, I don't know that anything beats Pepe Gonzalez when he was on for like his. And I don't even love the stories. I just love the art, the Vampirella stuff. I think back in the 70s, I was just like, and I've only recently discovered that. And, even a year ago, I would have said, John Romita Sr. is probably my favorite artist.
Yeah.
And Bill
Plus, you had the great
Sienkiewicz.
Frank Frazetta cover for Vampirella #1.
Oh, yeah. Amazing stuff. In fact, I was just getting a quote from one of the people who used to do the covers to possibly do a cover for us. There's an amazing documentary on Pepe Gonzalez, and this documentary is crazy. If you like old comics and this kind of thing, they're in Spain. The first episode's a half hour. The second episode's a half hour. The third episode is an hour. The fourth episode is 4 hours. They're like doubling their length. And I talked to the director. I said,
Snyder
what's
cut.
going on with this? And he goes, I'm working on an 8-hour episode.
Oh my lord.
Wow.
So, and it's fascinating. It's just, I think it's called Love Strip. So Google Love Strip and Pepe Gonzalez, it'll come up. And there's nothing like it. If you're a comic fan, you'll be in heaven. It's just something different. Anyway, it was issue 5. We introduced Regina, and very specifically because we were sort of in some ways modeling what Stan, Jack, Steve, and John did. It was issue 5 when they introduced Dr. Doom. This is when we introduced our nemesis, Regina, and she is the psychedelic hippie flower child gone wrong, and she's been a thorn in a palm's side from that point on. So, as we keep going, we did a Kickstarter for issues 1 through 5, did it in print for the first time, because up until then we were only selling them through Comixology. And then issues 6 through 11 were introduced in a trade all at once, like a Netflix series. Thank you, Sith Lordy. And thank you for setting this up or making the introduction. Greatly appreciated, and had a blast on Spine Ticks the other night.
Awesome,
Now, is
dude.
Regina in the movie too?
She's not. She's not. But this character sort of is, because this was from a musical that I wrote with my brother. Nothing Like Vaudeville. Tap Dance Killer was one of the songs. This story just goes so, it's impossible to tell it fast. I apologize. Before we ever made a movie, we made a musical. And I, for the longest time, I was in rock bands, and we did a concept album that was kind of Alice Cooper-esque, and the band's name was Nothing Like Vaudeville, and we dressed like these kind of strange vaudeville characters. One of the songs was Tap Dance Killer, and as we were doing the Apama book, he's getting his ass kicked in all these issues, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if, because I was working on a documentary for Near West Theater in Cleveland, because I do film work, continue to do film work. I said, what if we had Apama join a community theater, because it's actually right across the street from where he physically lives in Cleveland. As we use real locations within the book. And this theater was moving, 30 blocks down the street, right across the street. And I thought, man, this would be cool. This flirty gal asks our ice cream truck driver to go come audition for this community theater thing. And they're putting on Nothing Like Vaudeville. And there is something that happens. So he does it. He's having a blast. But then something happens within the theater where 3 of the villain characters are locked into the headspace permanently. And that would be the Tap Dance Killer, Nikki St. Clair, this guy Sir Terror, and this guy Fletcher. And Fletcher is, they become obsessed with their characters. And Fletcher in the movie, in the musical, is able to animate the dead. And he finds a way to, in trying to do that, enhance the human genome. So he makes they get this heavyweight boxer, and they kidnap him, but then they give him a choice. They're like, we're gonna help you get revenge on everyone who wronged you, because he was screwed over by management, all kinds of people that were kind of sabotaged his career. They give him a chance. They show him one of the failed experiments, which was Hurricane Lizzie, and he's intrigued enough. He thinks he's actually in a nightmare and agrees to do this. And then he becomes Punchline, the original clown-themed mob assassin. Punchline.
Except no substitutes.
Yeah,
Please.
exactly.
Please. So we did 5 issues of Tap Dance Killer, did a trade on that, and then it's continued in Punchline and the Vaudevillains, which is, there's one of the covers right there. And it's the same artist as Tap Dance Killer, Donny Hardy. So that gets us all the way up to Bloom, which just came out April 7th nationally. And maybe this would be a good time to perhaps show the trailer.
Let's do it. Let's start with the Kickstarter trailer on this one.
Bloom, the origin of a prophet. She's not a witch. She's not ancient. She's not possessed. She is an entity like no other. Bloom is a 4-issue series written and created by Ted Sikora with art by Butch Mappa. The year is 1969. Bloom, the origin of a prophet. Meet Ramsey, mechanic by day and aspiring comic book creator by night. One evening, when he tripped in the forest, he was bombarded by bizarre and mysterious glyphs. He tries to use the symbols to create a new villain, but he can't get it right until he goes to a festival and encounters Regina, a wild dancer, a free spirit. He invites Regina into the woods for a photo shoot. He paints the symbols onto her body, and then she becomes rated R for language, nudity. Photo cover featuring Alicia Lynn. Psychedelic A cover by the late great Bong Dazzle. Romance and mystery covers by Benito Gallego. Incentive cover by Donny Hardy. Or be drawn into the cult cover by Butch Mappa. Double-sized 48-page issue 1. Read Blue. Experience Blue. Live Blue. Read it like your very soul depends on it. Blue, the origin of a prophet. This April, Regina's coming for you.
You know what I think? This world we're in right now is the fairy tale. And what's really real is on the other side.
Kind of reminds you of like really old movies.
Yeah, that crackly sound and stuff. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I loved it. That was cool.
Thank you so much.
I like that. This clip never gets old. There you
That
go.
must be one of the stressful parts about starting a Kickstarter, knowing you got to get that trailer out there and get it seen and get it before people, and you know you got to nail it.
Oh man, it is. It's a really tough to get it all done in time. And you know, in the past we weren't really worried about the diamond schedule, but this was the idea of doing these as single issues on Kickstarter along with the diamond solicitation came from the reality that we don't make enough through diamond alone to only have diamond without conventions, because we usually, you know, the conventions are what help us break even and then turn a profit. So we thought, all right, we'll try to do the Kickstarter while that's going on. So it's, you know, you finish a Kickstarter, like this one will end, then I'll have like a month, you know, I just got my order from Diamond, and then now we've got to fulfill this within the month and then somehow get another Kickstarter launched in like a month. It's been a crazy year, but I did kind of clear my schedule to make this happen this year for the most part. I'm doing less shooting. Certainly, I'm not taking on any video editing. I'm getting off track here, but you know, it's I'm thrilled to be doing it this way.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so now we see Regina not only in the Bloom comic, but she's also in the Apama comic. So, and we saw similar themes in both those books too, with the layouts and the flashbacks of the creatures and the Apama creature coming on. So, are those books eventually going to tie together somehow?
Well, they're completely tied together. You don't have to have read one to read the other, but yeah, I mean, so. You know, Ilya, our main character in Apama, Ilya, the ice cream truck driver, goes hiking. Well, is it the Apama trailer you have? Which other trailer do you have?
I have the other Bloom trailer.
Okay, you got the two Bloom trailers. Okay. Yeah. So in Apama, our lead guy, he goes hiking, and in fact, I can kind of show it. We'll do a comic book PowerPoint here. Let's see. Yeah, so here we are in Apama #1, and our guy, it starts and he's in this pose, and he's going mad trying to get this pose to work, and you're kind of wondering what the hell's going on. There we go. But he can't get it. So then we kind of flash back to several weeks ago when he's on his route, and he ends up going hiking. And you can see some of the art there by Benito. Whoops, if I can get rid of the glare. But he sees this spirit, and he gives chase. And it leads him over a cliff where he gets knocked out, and he has this dream about the tournament of animals that once happened to determine who would be the king of the beasts.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, in fact, not the lion, but the Apama that comes in at the end and says, "You didn't even know I existed because I'm so stealth." And he wipes out the lion and says, "As my prize, I just want to claim my continued isolation from your common stock." We make the joke that Apama is sort of the dick of the animal kingdom, so and nobody knows about it. But in Bloom, so we're talking 40 years earlier. Okay, let me go back to Apama. He then discovers a cave right where he had this dream, and inside the cave is the legend of the Apama and how one can unlock it within a human, the spirit force of the Apama. In Bloom, our guy 40 years earlier is in this very similar close proximity. Did I say that word right? Proximity.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, he it sounded wrong. Proximity. All right. He's in the same area, and he has the same dream, but he doesn't find the cave. Instead, this guy is an aspiring comic book creator, and he just wants to use this idea to make a superhero. And that's when he's bombarded by these symbols that sort of make him forget a lot of what he had in that dream, and it kind of drives him crazy. So he feels like the symbols and the animal are at odds with each other, and they very much are. And that's why Regina was ready for Apama in issue 5. Like she said, there's a line in there where she goes, "I missed Woodstock because of you." And Apama, our guys, it's like, what the hell are you talking about? So so they're these two are joined, they're right at the hip, and there's a lot to go back and forth between the two.
One of the things I liked about this was the fact that I knew nothing about Apama coming into this. I knew strictly Bloom, because I just quickly got put into, called in for this, and I almost felt like I didn't need to know about the Apama comic, but now that I know that there's a tie-in, it would make me more like interested in saying, okay, let me go look at Apama. I mean, and see what that's about, and see if I can get those tied together, myself as well. So I just thought it was neat. You didn't need, like you said, you didn't need to know about the other comic in order to move forward on this one.
Yeah, well, it's very much the cornerstone piece of the Hero Tomorrow comics universe, Bloom being that. Like, this is where it all begins. So it's intentionally written. In fact, all of our series start with the assumption that you haven't read any of our other stuff.
So. Good. Yeah, that's good.
So, and basically in Bloom, this is the onset of Regina coming into this universe, and then she's a constant presence thereafter.
Correct.
Now, what was your inspiration for Regina?
Oh man, that's a weird story. Not as if the other ones aren't, I guess. But this one is because you've seen the trailer now. You kind of know what Bloom is about. It's very autobiographical. I was working on creating a villain for Apama 5, and I had this idea. In my film work, I had interviewed somebody that had tattoos all over their body, and they were telling me what each tattoo gave them, which I thought was a different way of thinking about tattoos. Like, this one protects me. This tattoo is giving me wisdom or whatever. And I just thought, man, what if this villain has all these symbols that are giving her different things, these glyphs. And I really specifically didn't want her to be a witch. I wanted her to have this kind of fun hippie vibe. And so I was trying to draw this out on 2-dimensional, on paper. And I really couldn't get it to where I felt it would be consistently drawn. Even if I gave the artist a bunch of drawings of it, I was having a hard time filling out the body in a way that was satisfactory. So I did buy a mannequin and painted up this mannequin. And then I was able to take photos of it. But in the meantime, somewhere along the way, before that, actually, I guess, I was at a festival. I was shooting Cleveland Public Theater's Pandemonium, which is a local theater here. It's their annual fundraiser, and they have dancers, a lot of belly dancers. So there was this troupe called Wind and Sand, and one of the dancers named Soma, who I didn't know her, but I just thought, man, she's got the right look for this character. And I asked her if she would be, I kind of had an in because I was like, I'm the one who produces the video of the event. Check it out. By the way, would you be interested in doing a photo shoot for this comic book and posing as the villain? And she was open to it, so pretty much we're lockstep with what happened with Ramsey and Bloom so far, but what happened here is we couldn't get our schedules together. And then this whole idea of Bloom jumped into my head. I just imagined, what if we got out into the woods to do this? And I don't know this person from anywhere. Of course, she didn't know me from anywhere, but like I was taking it from the point of maybe I'm the victim, so what if we get out there and she starts acting really strange and she's really into some weird occult kind of stuff. And maybe these symbols, there really is something to them more than what I think. And then you're kind of trapped and lost in the woods with somebody who's growing in power as you're just trying to get back home. And I wrote an entire screenplay about this. We were shopping it around to studios for years. So the screenplay was written before I wrote any of this Apama 5 story with her. So I really knew her very well before she even showed up in Apama. And we got as far as, talking to investors and holding auditions, but we really couldn't get the money raised. We did Hero Tomorrow on our own dime, and we were really trying to not do that again. So at a point, I thought, man, let's just make this into a comic. But the other funny part of this is the dancer, after I'd made the screenplay, she got a hold of me and said, "Hey, I'm ready to do that photo shoot. You want to do it now?" And I was just like, "Oh man, I don't feel, I feel like I have to come clean about something." I wrote this entire story around the idea of us doing a photo shoot, and it's really fucked up.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I better just, if you're open to it, I'm going to send you this. I hope you don't think I'm a total psycho, but I don't think with a good conscience I can just go out and shoot photos of you knowing what all has come of it. And she was really open about it, and really dug the script actually. And then we actually did go out and do a photo shoot, which has been used over and over for poses of Regina within the story. And I did change the look of Regina to give her sort of some form of privacy in terms of not being constantly seen as a villain in a comic book.
Nice. So how exciting was it whenever when they said, "All right, this is going to be a comic"? How did that feeling happen, or how did it feel?
Well, I mean, we made the decision ourselves. I mean, Hero Tomorrow is
It's your own company.
Yeah, it's my own company. So anytime we make that decision, it's like I'm excited for sure, but at the same time, I realize the work that's ahead of me.
A lot of work to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can show you an image of Soma. So this was actually one of the photos I took that ended up being used as a layout for our Kickstarter cover. Let's see if I do it like that. And this is the cover that it then became.
Huh.
That was done by Benito Gallego.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So
See inside this.
what really pops in these issues of Bloom too is the colors are magnificent.
Oh, I appreciate that. I started doing coloring because I was just trying to save money. And I have some art background. All through high school, I wanted to be a comic book artist. So I do design the characters, but the panel to panel stuff, nothing would ever get done. So I really like doing the coloring, and I just wish I had more time. That's the thing. It takes me an awfully long time to color.
But the colors were fantastic, though. They really enhanced the story. And all the different locations felt different. Even when they were going through the forest, each bit of the forest felt different with the color schematics.
Well, and I have hired colorists in the past, and absolutely love David Baff Gallard, and there was another guy I worked with, but I do find I'm often having to revise it just based on a mood that I had in mind or something, or there's certain things that I think are overdone in comics, like flashbacks always have to be in sepia or something. And I just when I remember something, I don't see it in sepia. I want to see it clear. I want to see it like it is in my head. And so I'm not really into heavy color treatments. I really, my approach is, same with my filmmaking, is just, I want it to be pure, like you're there as much as I can. And for better or worse, that's what you're getting with Bloom.
I was curious I know you went to the University of Akron. Is that correct?
That is right.
What is your degree like in? Like, what did you major in? Was it in art? What is it in?
I started, so out of high school, all I wanted to do was be a comic book artist, and everybody said, "You'll never make any money as a comic book artist. Comic book artists live on beans, and forget it. Get that silly notion out of your head, kid." So I was really into guitar, which is I started playing a lot of rock guitar and stuff, and all right, that'll be my side dream now. And I started out in accounting, and I hated it. I ended up with like a media advertising degree, so they kind of switched me into that. And I do pull on the advertising skills quite a bit.
So I noticed too, like a central theme so far, and what I've read is you're really big into dreams, the dream landscape, and symbols. Has that always been like an interest in your life?
Yeah, I used to. I mean, for the longest time, I kept guitar rock. Yeah, it is here. I have it. If you guys want to hear anything, just in case. But I used to keep dream journals. I'm fascinated by dreams. Some of my best ideas, I think, have kind of come from the dream journal, and I'm really curious. Openly curious about where that really even comes from and what that is. And it's a lot of things we explore, especially with the Regina character. I mean, there's so many stories I want to tell with her. And as they're going through the woods, I think one of the dynamics between Ramsey, the artist, and Regina, the muse, is Ramsey's an atheist. And, these symbols came to him when he was tripping in the woods. Mm-hmm. But he takes no responsibility for him. He's like, oh, it's just, it's out of my subconscious or whatever. But Regina, she'll believe everything. She's open to everything. She's, so they've got this little argument going through the woods as they get further and further into it, which is, a conversation that probably a lot of us have had with, to some degree or another.
All right. Now, why the 60s? What inspired that? Was it a choice because of your history with music, or is it an era you always loved? But what made you start there 40 years before the next story takes place with her?
The hippie movement for sure is fascinating to me. I love the music, and 1967 maybe when music even peaked. I'm sorry to say, but the I think pop music or rock music. What I really the way the hippie movement started and the way it ended is pretty fascinating. That it you would see a hippie walking down the street and you'd pick them up because they were all peaceful, but then things like the festival, it just lost me. The one where everyone was people were stampeded and killed, and there was the whole Manson thing, and all of a sudden everyone was looking at hippies quite differently, and even in like sort of the hippie communes, what started with people just sort of wanting to share in this sort of experience ended up being infiltrated by a lot of people that were just sort of freeloader, homeless, and they didn't have the same vision. There's a lot of things that took down the hippie movement in unfortunate ways. So the fact that Regina, I mean, I always thought of her thing as like, we tried to change the world peacefully in the 60s and it didn't stick. And now we're going to do it on my terms, you know, but she still has that every bit about that vibe is in her.
Yeah, she's like a natural part of the environment, the way she acts and moves, and she's really comfortable kind of wherever she's at.
Yeah. I'm glad that's coming through. Thank you.
So let's talk about the setup for issue 2, what's coming up with that too. But before we get there, how did you pair up with Butch Mappa?
So when we were only doing Apama at the time, and I had, Tap Dance Killer came out. How did this go? Tap Dance Killer was being liked and shared by the thousands on Facebook, on our social media, much more than Apama, you know. And I was just like, this is kind of interesting, you know. And I was at New York Comic Con, and you know, I had prints of Apama and Tap Dance Killer, and I'd be going into my Apama pitch, and everybody's like, yeah, but who's this? Who's you know? And oh, Nikki St. Clair, she's a mega talented actor who gets cast in a horror show musical as a Tap Dance Killer, but then she can't shake the role and starts trying to rub out the mafia. And that little, you know, Apama's pitch is so complicated. Her pitch is so easy. And even the name, the words Tap Dance Killer, they mean something, you know, when you just hear them, it puts some image into your head.
And they got a flow.
I'm sorry?
They have a flow to them.
Thank you. Well, so anyway, I decided, well, let's give her own series. And at the same time, I thought, man, I've been wanting to do the Bloom. So I'll do a search for artists for 2 projects. And we put it on digital webbing, and digitalwebbing.com is where we put the job offer. We got 200 submissions, and I had probably 40 artists, 50 artists, maybe, no, probably 40 try out for one book or the other or both. And they would just do like a paid, you know, not full rate, but just like a tryout rate of an image of either character then we would go further. Then I'd give them a sequential page for like maybe 10 of them. And Butch continually gave me a Regina that I just thought was a real person, you know, not some over-sexualized, you know, the type. I'm not into that. As you know, I'm married. I have a daughter. I got to be, I want to be responsible regardless of that, but that makes me triply want to be responsible with how I handle a female character.
Now, I feel like there's an element of the supernatural that's going to be introduced, and you kind of get that with the animal layouts and the history of that. With the animals talking and with the guy that Apama's trying to pose, and you're getting that with the glyphs and everything that are on Regina, that there's something more that's going to happen. So I'm getting the feeling, even though this is 4 issues, we're setting up for a big reveal. The first issue definitely felt like a story setup, and it feels like we're in for a big revelation coming up in 2.
Yeah, well, I mean, all 4 of these issues largely are between these 2 characters in the woods. So we're definitely, you know, I'm calling it Bloom, the origin of a prophet. So something's gonna burst, but I can't divest really exactly what will happen in issue 2. But yeah, it's evolving for sure.
And are the symbols that he paints on her, are any of those like actual symbols that were researched before they were put pen to paper,
No,
or just made up for the comic?
Made them all.
All right, and I saw too at the end of your comic too, you got this big playlist that you put in with like the Beatles.
Yeah.
So when you were writing, were you listening to something that put you in the mood to write what you were writing?
Well, not so much writing, because I think I almost need no lyrics when I'm writing. But when I was coloring, Ramsey's fiance isn't a Regina fan. And that is made evident by, I will just show this cover real quick and then I'll get back to your question. This is our other cover there. And the journey to mind bending madness begins. And, you know, let's see if I can get it to not glare. Hey, Ramsey, let's go home. That dancer's giving me the creeps. Ramsey. So anyway, yeah. We wanted to do those sort of 60s looking covers, you know, the romance style, with a little bit of maybe horror element in the background or something. But okay, back to the Beatles. You know, I've always loved the Beatles. You know, really my two favorite bands are Van Halen and the Beatles, and old Van Halen, for sure. And you know, for this, I do listen to a lot of 60s music when I'm coloring, but at one point, you know, as it says in the book, Regina asked me to do this. I do feel that Regina there is some sort of real entity force around her. And Butch has told me this too, that he says, sometimes when I'm drawing her, I really do feel like she's looking back at me. And like, there's just been so much weird stuff around how this character came to be. And, you know, when I say it's like the origin of a prophet, one of my heroes, have you heard of Alejandro Jodorowsky? He's a filmmaker. He did Dune. I'm sorry, he did
the Dune that was never made, that was never shown.
The Dune that was never made. Yes, yeah. Oh, so you know who he is. But like when he was starting to write Dune, in his interview, he said, one of the interviews, he said, "I'm not making a character, I'm making a prophet." I was like, oh my God, yes, this is what Regina is. You know, could somebody read, you know, when we get to like 10, 12 issues of Regina stories, can that have an effect on how you view reality? And can she act in that way as a prophet for you? This is one of my side challenges. So I'm so way off track about talking about the Beatles, but so she told me that you have to make the perfect Beatles post-breakup album as if the band was still together. So there's like 70 plus Beatles solo albums by John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And I know there have been things called like the Black Album that Ethan Hawke put together. And I believe I tried giving that a listen and it was fine, but he was just pulling from all over the place and there was no flow. Like, you know, you would have a song from 1971 followed by a song from 1983. What if we just did, you know, 70 from like 69 to 72, and that's going to be the first one, and then from 72 to 75 is going to be the second one, and 75 to 80 or something, you know, to John's death. And so as I'm coloring, I have been listening and working on this playlist, and I mean, it's going to sound obsessive. I've you know, probably heard this thing hundreds of times, and I like, you know, that song doesn't flow after this one. They would never do that. But I wasn't just trying to do the hits. You know, I was really reaching into what I felt were great tracks, artistic tracks that weren't necessarily hits. Because the White Album is probably my favorite album of all time, and I love the eclectic quality of that. So that's really what I was aiming for with the Beatles Bloom Volume 1.
Nice. Well,
Abbey Road all the way.
You know, I can't argue that. It's wonderful. I'm right there. They're 1 and 2 for me, but the White Album's got that extra magic for me.
Yeah, and our wedding song was All You Need Is Love. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah. Though that's Magical Mystery Tour, right?
Yeah, well, it's cool because I saw, and you had it kind of layered into the story too with different music beats. So it kind of felt like music was guiding you a little bit in your writing.
Yeah, no, there's that. Well, when we were thinking of doing this as a film, I was putting the soundtrack together. Like I really had a lot of ideas about what we wanted to do for tracks, and you know, they got a little radio and they're just dancing out there in the woods with all these great tunes, and yeah. Revolution number 9.
Nice. Now it must be a kick for your family too to watch all this happening, you know, just to see it all blowing up and getting big.
Yeah, and my daughter, you know, she's 14 now, and she really she's like my assistant editor. She's a wonderful young writer, and far beyond where I was at her age. In some ways, maybe beyond where I am now. But she'll look at things. She'll pose for me. She'll do help me with layouts. Yeah, we have a blast with it.
Now, when you were
bring the
putting the
family
comic together, how'd you decide all the layouts? Because you have like spread pages and the way you put the panels together. Did that take a lot of time? It wasn't put together like your basic comic book.
I get very involved with the layouts, and I can show you, like in the Tap Dance Killer, we've got a bunch of extras here. Actually, in Punchline, you may have seen that. Did I give you Punchline number 1? I think I did.
You did? I haven't got to it yet, though.
No problem. Let me see if I can find this here. So yeah, like in the Tap Dance, this is Tap Dance Killer Volume 1. And we have a putting it together section. So you see sort of the, like what a script page looks like. Then, so what I always give the artist, first crack at the layout, but in this one, I felt like I wasn't clear enough. So I shot him back this thing, and I use these posable figures. I'll take I'll Photoshop them. And then I actually put it right into Illustrator, and I do the lettering as if it's the final. So from that point on, every piece of artwork gets dropped right back into Illustrator, and I'm always seeing the dialogue, which gives me a really good chance to keep revising it and making it better every time. And that's why I do suggest for most writers that they do their own lettering if they can. I'm not trying to put letterers out of work, but I just think there's so many opportunities that I've come up with because I was doing it myself. And there's the flat colors and the regular colors, but then when you see the final,
those panels are unique though. The slant and the way they form together.
Yeah, actually, that's not how it's laid out. That was just done for this is the same page. I just tried to fit 2 on 1 page, so that's in the book. It's a splash page.
Oh.
But yeah, I really love it. And in fact, it's become a weird sort of crutch for me where sometimes I don't even write the script. I'll just go right to like a rough layout and give that to the artist. If I'm really clear on what I want, maybe save a little time.
I was trying to find the page. I was just looking at it where they actually go from being in the garage to the Apollo landing to the whole flow of that was really nicely done without all the little slashed lines or anything of that nature.
Oh, I can pull it open here.
Yeah, it was like
so it's sort of
that one right there. Yeah,
sort of a passage of time where he's out of the garage, the moon landing, and
then jumped right over to the. I thought it was really neat. I thought that was well done. Kind of brought you into the flow of it really easily.
And there he is working on his character, which resembles Apama to an extent.
Yeah.
Right, and I like in the Apama comic just the simplicity of the costume.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
It's just he's a guy. He's out there doing his thing. He's trying to be a hero, and it's just let's go forward. And the first thing he does is fail and fall, and it's kind of funny. And you see the trials and tribulations as he's going out trying to accomplish this dream he has.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with him, and there's a little shout out to Bob Burden in there with the flaming carrot.
That was cool.
A side story too, because we met Bob Burden when we were making the Hero Tomorrow movie, because there is a comic shop in the Hero Tomorrow film, and we approached Marvel Comics, we approached DC Comics. Hey, is it all right if we just show your work in the background? We're not going to say anything derogatory about it. They flat out both told us no, we could not show their stuff. So we had to reach out to the independent comics community. Started going to Comic Cons, meeting people. Hey, we're making a movie. Would you want to have some of your stuff shown in the background? We'd really appreciate it. And it was going very well. The floodgates opened when Tony Isabella posted about it, and he said, hey, this guy who because he used to work with my mother at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, so I've always known Tony, and he posted this, and we got everybody. We got then we got Astro City art. We got then that's when I met Flaming Carrot. Bob Burden. That's when I met the Flaming Carrot.
Yeah.
And we really hit it off. He did the Mystery Men movie, and so he was kind of mentoring us on the movie side. And there was quite a while when Milo Miller and I were working on a Flaming Carrot adaptation in film. So we were working on a script, and we would send that to Bob. And ultimately we got to a point where it's like, man, if we're going to do all this, maybe we should be on our own stuff. Because we, again, it was just trying to find the money wasn't coming through.
Right. And the landscape's changed so much now with streaming services. So everything is so much different. And it's like you were talking about earlier too, like with the no cons. So when COVID hit, that really messed up the whole independent game, because the cons are the bread and butter of the independence industry for the most part, right?
It really is. I mean, we're super fortunate to have an agreement with Diamond, where that we have, because just the Kickstarter alone wouldn't be enough either, really. So it's kind of like to have the two is making it work. So and now cons are starting to kind of creep back. I just did one 2 days ago in Akron. It went really wonderful. So now we might have this 3-pronged attack here.
And I know that my local LCS, Rhinos Comics and Collectibles, your book was in stock there.
I'm glad to hear.
They had a bunch of copies. I think and I was just in there today helping them sort everything. There's only one copy of your book left in there, so he had a pretty good sellout of it.
Yeah, I know Diamond sold out right away, and we sent them some more, and they sold those out too. So hopefully they'll order some more again. But we can always, anybody can get it on our website at herotomorrow.com. Or
and you had some pretty eye-catching covers. Just
yeah, that's the Donny Hardy Jawa. That's the Virgin variant. And I can run through them here if you want. I got 6 of them.
Oh, sure. We'll let you promote them real quick.
Okay. So one of the reason we ended up with so many covers, because before this, the most I'd ever done was 3, was Bloom was originally intended to be a graphic novel. That was the idea, was to just do a graphic novel. But in doing the single issues with Tap Dance Killer, I realized how much better it is to do singles first. And, a lot of people don't really like graphic novels. They only like the floppy, so they won't even get a chance to experience the story necessarily. So
yeah.
I was trying to break it up, and I had a chapter point after like 23 pages in Bloom 1, but I didn't feel like it was a strong first issue ending. So I had already had Benito. So the first cover was really this was, that moment on stage when they see the dancer. That was going to be sort of the main cover. And this one was going to be the cover for issue 2. But because I didn't like my chapter point, I decided to make this first issue 48 pages. We kept it at $3.99, but it's 40 story pages, which is almost double a typical comic. And for that reason, I ended up with 2 covers right away. I knew I wanted to do a photo cover. We'd never done one of those before, but I met this gal, Alicia Lynn, at Steel City Con, and she had such a great Regina vibe. So she came down to the studio, and then we actually did a flip on that one too. So she signs both sides. This actually ended up becoming the main cover. And this was one of those first images when artists were sort of trying out for Bloom. Bong Dazzo did this. And it was just an astonishing image. I absolutely love it.
It's a full cover.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the reason Bong didn't get the gig was we weren't communicating very well. There was a bit of a language barrier. Although I know he did a lot of great work with a lot of, other writers. But I didn't feel I could get the nuance that I kind of needed to convey to him. And then, obviously, unfortunately, he passed away. So this ends up being one of the last published works. and it just feels. This is one of those magical things about Bloom. It's just like I'm honored that we have him represented after his death in such a beautiful, powerful way.
Yeah.
And then this one is by Donny Hardy with Jawa. This was his tryout image for Bloom, which you look at this like, how did he not get the gig? Well, he got the Tap Dance Killer gig. So, but it's just a wonderful, wonderful work. And then Butch, the artist of the series, did a cover where you could be actually drawn into the cult on the cover. So people at a certain reward tier on our Kickstarter campaign, your face shows up in the background as one of the cult members. So we had 6 of them. And that was the cover.
Nice. So a little hint, because we're not to the cult yet in the story.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No disagreement there, Manny.
That's
yeah.
Manny is a pretty good artist himself.
Tabong.
Mm.
So are you going to keep expanding this universe, or is it just going to be set mainly in these couple comics?
Well, we don't want to go too far too fast, although a lot of people think we're probably going too slow. But yeah, it's really just a few of us doing these comics. You know, when I look at a Marvel book or something and you see all these names, I'm like, oh, I'm so kind of envious. But at the same time, I'm also not. I really like that we get to tell the story very personally. I think a trap a lot of indies get into is they don't necessarily show their work to somebody who's going to give them the hard truth about what's wrong with it or something. And I was very fortunate to meet Jim Salicrup at a convention. He was introduced to me at New York Comic Con by my friend Henri Campen, and Henri said, "Hey, I think you're going to really like this guy's book." Do you know who Jim Salicrup is?
I do not.
Okay, he was the editor on Amazing Spider-Man during the McFarlane run.
Okay.
Yeah, so he worked under Stan for a long portion of his life. So he takes a copy of Apama. You know, it was maybe the Saturday of New York Comic Con. Sunday, he comes back to my booth, sits with me for 2 hours, and goes over it and gives me the Marvel critique. And I mean, he does the most badass Stan Lee impression you've ever heard. And one of the things, you know, he's like, you know, because at the time it said Apama, Cleveland's resident superhero, and he's like, you need a different tagline. I mean, that's good for Cleveland, but
Right.
this isn't really, you know. So all right, so tell me more about it. What's this character? What's it in a nutshell? And I said, the thing about it is Apama was made in a feature film to be a hard to explain idea. Like it's not easy to explain a superhero based on an animal that doesn't exist. Like that was the humor of the movie. And he said, well, you know what Stan would have said? And I said, no, what? And he goes, Apama, the most inexplicable superhero of all time. And I thought, oh my God, that's so fucking perfect. You know?
Yeah.
But so anyway, when I'm getting our books close to completion, I will send it to Jim. I send it to my friend Chris Hickson, who's a writer himself. And, you know, everybody, you know, I show it to people who are going to be honest with me. And that's what I tell everybody in indies. You know, don't just show it to your friends. Show it to people who are going to really hammer you, because you don't want to hear that you got problems that could have been fixed. Thank you, Sith Lordy. You want to get it right. And so I think being as lean as we are, we do rely on our proofreaders and people who have a lot of editorial experience to, you know, I am the editor of the book, but I'm not the be all end all. I want to make sure that somebody else takes a crack at it. And yeah, I don't know, keeps us avoiding our blind spots.
So on number 2, are you actually going to be doing all of the same thing you're doing now? The creator, the writer, the artists,
yeah,
letters. You're going to do all that stuff still?
Yeah, all 4 issues of this, I'm coloring, lettering, you know, writing.
Okay, good.
Laying out, and you know, Butch is there for the pencils and inks.
So it's still going to have that same flow, look, and feel to it. So
Yeah,
that's
really
good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Good.
Appreciate
Cool.
it.
So how about we play that second trailer now?
Second Bloom trailer. Let's do it. So it'll overlap a little bit because the Kickstarter that's current is it says Bloom 1 and 2. So if you just put up Bloom 2, somebody will be like, too bad I missed issue 1. But you can get issue 1 bundled with 2, so it does overlap a bit. Here we go.
And I got it.
Nice. All right, here we go.
You know what I think? This world we're in right now is the fairy tale. And what's really real is on the other side.
Ramsey, mechanic by day, aspiring comic book creator by night, went into the woods and tripped. He was bombarded by bizarre and mysterious glyphs that he drew into his sketch pad and onto the body of his muse, Regina. And now, the journey to mind-bending madness continues.
Where are you going? Can't we just head back to the cars?
I said I'll see you on the other side.
How am I even supposed to get over there? And what about all the stuff? Regina!
Bloom, the origin of a prophet.
Oh, groovy! Your art is crawling all over me.
Shit. What is going on with you?
What's going on with you? All of a sudden, you're a complete drip, baby. Maybe you need another limb to the head. Ah!
Bloom, written and created by Ted Sikora, with art by Butch Mappa.
How are you feeling, Ram Man?
You've never experienced a story so astonishing, so far out and away from the beaten path.
Where in the fuck am I?
Blast off with Bloom, the origin of a prophet.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
More weirdness
Now, Ed,
on the way.
Before we wrap this up and start wrapping, where can people buy your movie Hero Tomorrow?
HeroTomorrow.com. That's got the movies, all our back issues, and the trades, the soundtrack of Nothing Like Vaudeville.
And is it on any streaming services yet?
I think Nothing Like Vaudeville is. I think you can find it on Spotify or any of that, almost anything.
Nice.
And but most importantly is go to Kickstarter and type in Bloom and check out the new campaign.
Nice. And I do have the links to the people watching, all the people catching on the rewind. The links are posted below, right to it. And beautiful Butch Mappa art, Manny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm honored to be working with them. Absolutely love him. He's just a wonderful human being all around.
Excellent. Did you gentlemen have any more questions for him?
Not
Not
for
really.
me. I think I've.
All right. So is there any kind of closing thoughts you'd like to get out there before we end the broadcast?
No, just thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate the enthusiasm towards the project. And we got. Oh well, I will say this because coming out Wednesday is Punchline and the Vaudevillain. So that we did a Kickstarter for this a few months ago, but this one's coming out nationally on Wednesday. So this is a continuation of the Tap Dance Killer series, but you do not have to have read Tap Dance Killer to read Punchline. So it's about a heavyweight boxer who becomes a superpowered murderous clown. So there you go.
Everybody likes a murderous clown.
Yeah. Ha ha.
At least one anyway.
Right? But all right, Ed.
Oh, and
We've kept you an hour. I know we ran a little long, and I apologize.
No problem. The whole thing about Punchline, he was made to be an Apama villain, and it was when we did the Tap Dance Killer series. I thought, man, this is a perfect place to introduce Punchline with the magic of this guy Fletcher that I told you about earlier.
Oh, right.
So that's what we're really setting up is the big throwdown between Apama and Punchline. This is one of the covers for issue 2 by Kanan White. So there. Now, definitely.
Oh no, you're good, man. That's what you're
Yeah.
here for, to pimp out your stuff.
Yep.
I just felt bad that we've kept you an hour.
Oh, not at
No,
all,
but-
man. I dude, it's all good.
But thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on. You are our second guest on this new show that we've created, and we really appreciate you lining yourself up and being available for us.
Happy to do it anytime, and good luck with the show, and we'll stay in touch.
And hey, no problem. And if you want to share this anywhere, by all means, feel free to share your interview if it helps out any place.
We'll do.
I did have one quick. Are you going to be at C2E2?
They just announced that, didn't they?
It's in like in December.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I
just figured somewhat close.
Yeah, I've done it in the past and I loved it.
Yeah.
So if I, I'll see. I'll apply for Artist Alley and see what happens.
There you go. Just curious. Okay.
All right,
Sorry,
excellent.
Jake.
No, I just want to thank everyone that watched us live tonight, and everyone that's going to watch us in the rewind. Thank you very much for showing up and giving Ted your time. We appreciate your time. So thank you, everybody. And we're going to go around and let everybody do their close. Chip, let's start with you.
My close. What's my close? Wait.
Your tagline.
Oh, my tag. All right. I'm Chip.
Come on,
Nice
bro.
hunting, everyone. We'll see you next time. Yeah.
Slide
Happy
up,
hunting.
comic book world.
Until next time, keep it casual. Ted, take us out, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yeah, please check us out at herotomorrow.com and or Facebook, Twitter, Ted Sikora.